So we know that something was going on at this island. That's my seed location. When this Epstein case hit critical mass, despite these being some of the smartest people on the planet, CEOs or publishers of major newspapers, some entertainers, if you saw the intel that I saw.
What types of people are we talking about there?
But this was not open access, public availability. Again, people who are public figures who would have a lot to lose. Lots of investigative leads, a lot of witnesses, staff, cooks, maids, bartenders, and victims. You know, they carried the phones with them. What does the data tell me? As I'm developing this list, this doesn't make sense. I must be wrong.
You must be wrong.
Because my cognitive dissonance was, he wouldn't be affiliated with this guy.
But then the data starts painting a story.
Yep.
You came into contact with DARPA, probably the most mysterious government organization, and did some sort of data work with them.
Yeah. Tech is interesting. So...
What's up, guys? Thank you so much, as always, for watching my channel. If you have not hit that subscribe button, can you please do me a huge favor and hit that right now? I appreciate everyone who's been watching these videos consistently. The #1 analytic we need to get these videos into the algorithm is you guys hitting the subscribe button, though. And when you do that, we get them in and we can continue getting great guests. So thank you to everyone who's already taken the time to do that. And thank you to all of you who are going to do so now. Enjoy the episode.
That'll do it. So
yeah.
I see you're like a one-trick pony with the intensity, but it works. Yeah. So I had said at the end of the last episode that we were going to have to bring you back very soon. So here we are. You're suited up this time. I'm a little afraid.
I've grown up clothes today, so
yeah, and you still have the like the ties like a little loose, like you're about to like.
Yeah, I'm done for the day, so. I can let it go a little bit.
What were you doing up here besides
I was in the city, seeing a client.
Oh, okay. Client? Foreign state? No.
I wish.
Okay. All right. They pay well?
They pay well.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, you had left us with some cliffhangers at the end of the last one, and actually right after we recorded, Tommy G, our mutual friend, put out one of the documentaries that features you, which was investigating the Epstein files in D.C. You were great in that. Tommy, as always, did a great job putting that together. But how did you get involved with knowing anything about those files, and what was the extent there? Yeah.
So in terms of the official DOJ files, I'm not seeing those. I'm not looking at those. When this Epstein case came into, got real sort of hit critical mass. And there was all this speculation. Like I'm a time in the thick of, location data and location intelligence and being able to have a look. I know the island. I know the penthouse. I have the seed locations. What does the data tell me? So in terms of it's the closest, the best way to describe it would be a probabilistic list, caveated with these are people these are devices that dwelled at the island. Now, who knows what I don't know what they were doing there.
I'm sure they were just laying on the beach, Mike.
Yeah. It was a executive retreat, learning about leadership, and not commission. This was just curiosity because I could, and wanted to test some theories, and the reality is, despite these being some of the smartest people on the planet, who probably went through, just looking at their travel patterns, they were trying to be a little evasive, but they carried the phones with them, the same phones they carry with them to work, to their kids' soccer games, and so it is a probabilistic social graph of people that were sort of in that orbit, or devices that were in that orbit.
When did you first decide, no, I'll take a look at this?
This is 2018.
Wow.
Early days, yeah.
Okay, so is this 2018, are you referring to 2018 or 2019? It would have been if like right when he first got caught, or like it was before he got caught, which would be 2018.
Whenever it became critical, the critical volume, the critical mass of the
Probably
story,
2019,
which would have piqued my interest.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where, okay, the feds are involved. If I'm asked, I want to be prepared to either say, I can assist, and I can assist in a way that, because these are U.S. persons, so no warrant. This is commercial data. So I was able to sort of jumpstart, or would have been able to jumpstart, if they wanted to start looking at names, assuming they didn't already have them. And I don't know if they have a list of names. We're told they do. It's on the Attorney General's desk, and then we're told there's nothing there to see.
Yeah, there's nothing that exists.
There's and resolving identity to those patterns of life. Again, because we're talking about the U.S. and the openness of data, being able to correlate a bed down location where with a location where a device goes to work regularly makes that a really not easy, but it's a more resolved identity resolution.
Now, how do you? I'm trying to picture this because I'm not at all an expert in what you did. But for people who didn't see the last episode, obviously you're going to fill in some blanks again today on some of the tactics you use. But you're effectively at a 30,000-foot view using publicly available cell data to be able to track devices and then cross-reference that with other publicly available data to be able to identify people and where they are. When you're talking about identifying people, let's say with the island, though, at the time that you were looking at it, when this is a critical mass, am I understanding correctly that you're looking at back data, meaning you could be looking as far back as 2011, 2012?
I only went back. I didn't go back that far. I didn't need to come up with a good dense list.
Wow. How far back did you go? Like a couple years?
Yeah, 2015.
Okay.
So I was, again, looking at recency, trying to get more recency. But so the process, so we know that something was going on at this island. That's my seed location. Then I'm going to look and see what devices were at that location and where were they before and where were they after.
So that would be able to explain, for example, let's not use names here, but, Schmil Schmates, if he were somewhere else with that phone in 2015, even if he's had two phones since then, you would be able to see based on, say, cross-referencing, I'm going to make up a number, 5 to 6 different places he might have been before that clearly that's him. Yeah.
So if we're talking about that archetype of character, I'm gonna see a device that's at the island, and then I'm gonna see devices or device patterns in and around the Seattle, Washington area.
Right.
There's a big foundation in downtown Seattle where that device might spend a lot of time, and start appending identity with probability. These are not facts, because I'm not looking at this device identifier belongs to this name. I'm seeing the device sleep at this location, which through publicly available information, I can append a name. I see it. Then I further filter it, and I see that device at places where it's likely that's where they work based upon publicly available information. So I'm sharpening that hypothesis as to who this device belongs to.
Right. But that's crazy to me that you would be looking at this and you'd be like, well, I don't need to go back farther than 2015 or 2016. 6-7 years after he is indicted and found guilty of, underage, well, it ended up being soliciting a prostitute, but, being a pedophile, let's call it what it is. And after there were already, without me having it in front of me, I know there were multiple lawsuits that had come up by that time as well that had been reported in the news, not as loudly as they should, but had been reported. Wouldn't it be very, very interesting that, say, some extremely powerful people would still have, I don't know, the nerve to go down to forget going to his townhouse, to go to the island. I don't even know if they went on the guy's jet. Either way, to go to that island at that point, how dumb do you have to be, or how blackmailed do you have to be?
So this may be the counterfactual associated with people that are really smart, is they think that they're too smart and can get away with it. I don't know. I don't know what goes into the mind. The psychology, I don't understand the draw. Or maybe I do, and it's not that complex. But I think that there was, if you look at this cohort, they're people that have everything. They've got people telling them how great they are, how wonderful they are, tending to their every need. They snap their fingers. So, they probably have a mindset that they can do this and sort of be above the accountability. And if you think about it, it's my impetus to look into this was the noise really was about the embarrassment that it would cause some of these people. Embarrassment is the least of your worries.
Yeah.
But if that is all you are worried about, your public perception and it's a public relations crisis and I need my comms team to come in and help, that's the wrong problem to be focused on. And it was kind of a neat little project to see if I could do it with some degree of volume, where if it comes push to shove, where we need to put identity because we don't have a black book, but we need some leads, some investigative leads. But that call never came.
Never came to you?
Never came to me.
Okay, let me try to piece some of this together. As you know, producer of this show, Joey Deef, is a longtime vape abuser.
Yep.
But like many of you out there who may relate to that, he doesn't want to be.
I don't. I really don't.
And the truth is, if you're ready to break a bad habit like vaping, the first step doesn't need to be hard or expensive. You just need the right tool to start. And that's exactly what Fume Zero gives you. As the sponsors of this episode and Deef's long road to recovery, Fume is now bringing you their brand new grab-and-go flavored air device, the Fume Zero. Here's why it's different. It's affordable. At just $24.99, you're going to get a sleek, pre-filled device, no commitment, no refills, no batteries. It's also completely clean. There's zero nicotine, zero vapor, just natural plant-based flavored air. And finally, it's the first truly easy way to try the good habit. With 6 bold flavors and up to 10 days of use, Fume Zero makes it simple to start. Deef, what'd you think when you first opened up the box and saw the Fume Zero?
Well, I went blind for a few seconds.
Blind?
Yeah. Because of its sleek design. It's like the light was bouncing right off of it, and it was just blasting my pupils in the Kingdom Come.
Blinded by the light.
Exactly. You ever see that one Quentin Tarantino film? What's it called?
Quentin.
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, great.
And they open up the suitcase.
Yes.
That's what it was like when I opened my Fume box.
Any flavors that stand out to you?
Any flavors that stand out? Dude, I'm inhaling that sparkling grapefruit, yo.
Well, there you have it, folks. You can join Deef today and take 0 chances with Fume Zero, available for just $24.99. Just head on over to tryfume.com. That link is in my description below. That's tryfum.com to start with zero. Once again, hit that link in my description below and start with Fume Zero today for $24.99. You are working on this now at least several years after you first began doing some contracts for the government with this type of work. You laid out that story last time. Pretty crazy, that whole thing, like potentially tracking Delta Force to Syria and being like, guys, anyone can do this. So now, you know, the government's had you work on multiple different things, you know, basically all different types of stuff as it comes up where your expertise could be used. And I'm picturing you right now, correct me if I'm wrong, once again, like doing this in your bedroom, like you talked about.
Yeah, the home office in between the master bedroom and my daughter's room.
Right.
Yeah.
So this whole Epstein story is coming out and you're like, I'm going to get this. And you go in and voluntarily say, all right, if called upon, let me see what I got. Now, you said the call never came. Did you tell, I assume, high-level people that you were
knew
working
I had
with?
it. People knew I had it. But you know, I was my folks were counterterror, and this was not counterterror.
It wasn't. I could see how it could get tied into that.
At the time, this was, again, early days.
Yes.
So looking deeply into, you know, and that was one of the things I was like, why is he so involved in the limited?
Yeah, Les Wexner's
Yeah,
company.
because you know, like I just it wasn't the headline narrative at the time, and I'm, you know, and so unraveling that was fascinating.
So you unraveled the L Brands connection. Can you please?
Yeah, I mean, he spent a lot of he spent time at the headquarters of
Victoria's Secret?
the limited brand, the parent company that owns.
I got you. Okay. Let me just Google limited brands, U.S.
I was trying. So there was a lot of dwell in Ohio.
Yeah, that was so their primary headquarters is in Columbus. Right. And then there's a neighborhood outside there whose name is eluding me right now. Epstein, Ohio neighborhood. Let me just get what it's called.
So
New Albany.
I came into this without any a priori knowledge about him, right? So again, it was like, that's interesting. What is the Ohio connection?
Yeah.
And so that became clear. And the people that he was associating with here in the States, again, as another filter, would also dwell with him on the island.
What types of people are we talking about there?
So these are CEOs, CEOs of studios, CEOs or publishers of major newspapers, media outlets, some entertainers, some religious folks.
Religious folks?
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
I don't know if I've really heard. I mean, there's so much on this case. Some goes in one ear, out the other. But
again, they may have just been there to you know, well, they wouldn't have been doing mass, but
hey, I was going to say, did he find Christ or something?
Yeah.
I must have missed that.
But this was not open access, public availability.
Yes.
You know, these were, again, people who are public figures who would have a lot to lose. And it's compelling enough where I was kind of like, yeah, they'll get this. This is too easy to make public, you know, to even just issue press like, we're investigating these people. We're not accusing them of anything, but they were at the island. So maybe they should explain themselves.
Yeah. I've had a guy sitting in that seat who was at the island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is the what do we want to call them? The victims. Segmenting the people on the island. So a lot of staff, cooks, maids, bartenders, and the victims, and understanding how that cohort segmented both on the island and back in the States.
What do you mean by that?
Just the number of people who, in addition to the victims, who were employed,
Got it.
groundskeepers, et cetera.
So separating them from the victims themselves. Got it. Okay.
And from the clients, from
Whatever
the
they are.
visitors. Yeah.
Yeah. Clients, certainly a good word.
So lots of investigative leads, a lot of witnesses. What did you see and when did you see it and who did you see?
Yeah.
And lots of people to be able to interview.
You know what's funny? In all the years of looking at this case, I don't think I've ever heard, when it comes to the island, about, people reporting on it referring to, say, bartenders, waitresses, or maids or stuff like that. Now, guys I have heard are, guys working on the power lines, groundskeepers, normal stuff that, would be on any property, let alone a private island. But that's interesting because you think of a bartender or a maid, these are, they're covering the most personal interactions and stuff, meaning they're seeing everyone, and they have to have, at some point, they have to have some idea that,
something's not right.
Something's not right here. So you were also, as you pointed out, you're segmenting those people to kind of put them in their own bucket.
Like the bartender. So again, I should say probabilistic, but, I see that device working at clubs, at other islands or other resorts, exhibiting a pattern of life that's typical of somebody who's working late night, not during the day, but dwelling at resort properties and then club-like facilities where they would be working as a bartender.
The people who are coming onto the island working there, let's separate the groundskeepers and stuff like that, who I assume are from one of the very local places right there. But when we're talking bartenders, when we're talking even maids or management of any kind, were these people also from the Caribbean area right there nearby?
Yep.
Or were there...
Or they were, they would work, they would have, I'm working this place tonight, I'm here on this job for a week.
Okay.
But they would have their sort of regular job, but they would spend time on the island, again, correlated with visitors.
Right. Okay.
So they weren't just hanging out when we didn't have any of our high profile people there. They were off doing their other jobs.
Point being, it's not someone sketchy. You're not seeing a lot of sketchy people flying in from Eastern Europe for this, or flying in from New York for this, or okay.
No.
All right. So that part, it seems like
this would be, sort of the professional house staff.
Yes. He had the part a little bit more,
Yep.
I guess, covered for the window dressing in that department.
Yeah. Or he wanted to have proper, somebody who knows how to make a drink, right? Or
but they're not spies.
No.
Right.
No.
Okay. All right. There's a lot. I have so many questions on this.
And it's it's kind of so there's a lot to unpack with this, but it's I think about it today, and we got three administrations if you count Trump's administration twice. The Department of Justice is responsible for prosecuting. We've had three administrations. All three have sort of exhibited the same outlook about it. I don't know what to read into that. other than there isn't anything for us to prosecute against. So we've moved on. But it's like, where does the investigation go from here? Because you don't have a U.S. attorney, you don't have the attorney general, you don't have a prosecutor pursuing a case, investigating. I don't know where to go with it.
It's obviously a cover-up, and I will say the thing, the 500-pound elephant in the room is Trump because he's in office and he knew this guy.
Yeah.
Now, the first thing in his defense is that this guy, unfortunately, knew fucking everyone in New York.
Yep.
He just did. It's a fact of the matter. And we've said it a million times in different contexts on this show when it comes up, but all he had to do and all Ghislaine had to do was take a picture with you. There's that famous picture of Elon Musk walking by where clearly he's walking with his drink and the photographer goes, "Sir," and he kind of turns like this and Ghislaine just finds her way right here. It's probably completely innocent.
Yep.
But there's that 0.001% that for the rest of his life he's going to have to answer a question about that.
Yep.
Some of the academics who, the guy I had sitting in that chair who was down at the island was Lawrence Krauss, who's an academic. And all these guys are going to have to answer those questions forever. When I will say this about Lawrence, he was as blunt about it as you will ever get. He's like, "I'm a scientist. We need funding." The guy brought funding. At the time, we thought he was good. And he brought funding, and that's what it was.
Yep.
And I'd like to believe him. You know what I mean? But there's always going to be that small question, whether it's him or Steven Pinker or any of these guys, just because of how he would get into proximity to people. So I have to give Trump the same, I guess, understanding with that. However,
what's interesting about that? What you just said?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the character that you referred to that may be resident in the Seattle area, who has a big foundation.
Yeah.
That foundation has a intelligence arm, a security arm, mostly to vet grant seekers. Are they a charlatan? Are they full of shit? But they do vetting that's pretty exhaustive, pretty extensive. And they're also responsible for protecting the individual and another really rich guy that lives in Omaha, Nebraska. Warren Buffett.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
I thought you were.
You can say Schmar and Buffett, but yeah.
But so in terms of, the foundation would have vetted Epstein's file and would have advised their principal to avoid him based upon the whole portfolio, the whole envelope of everything that he had been involved with. But that didn't matter.
Do you know the name of that company?
Which company?
The security company?
It's part of it is they are part of the foundation.
Okay, so it's completely internalized.
Yeah.
I mean, it's under the umbrella. It's not part of the foundation hired on a contract basis.
Yep. No, this is one of their entities that does mostly due diligence on people who are applying for funding.
Got it. What's their origin? Are these like U.S. former intel guys?
Some,
or?
Yeah, some. I mean, and it's mostly open source type research, and they do a lot of his physical security. So if there's a threat against him, you get somebody who's going crazy on social media that he needs to go. He's the devil. He's vaccinating. He's doing all of this stuff. They're watching those voices on social media and informing his protective detail.
Like the Secret Service watches a president.
Precisely.
Okay.
Yep. Same methods. A lot of the same tools.
Yeah.
Any package that would arrive at the foundation. And he gets some crazy stuff.
I'm sure.
But so I interrupted you because you were talking about
Trump.
how these there's no way that any of these guys who have these public profiles, who have security people, somebody would have said,
Right.
I can't tell you what to do, boss, but understand that this is what we know about this guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I always do my best to give the full picture, and I think you have to do the same thing with Trump for sure. But there's multiple things going on here. In his defense, that you still have to say is it is pretty verified 6 ways to Sunday that at least since like 04-ish, 05-ish, he ceased all contact with Jeffrey Epstein and didn't deal with him. Now, there's been rumors that was because Epstein came onto a 15-year-old towel hand at Mar-a-Lago, which it does appear that is true, that he did do that. The other thing that was reported, though, and I believe it was Tara Palmieri in her podcast she did on this back in 2020, I want to say. The other thing that was reported through, I think it was Brad Edwards who said this, the lawyer for a lot of the victims, is that Trump and Epstein both wanted the same piece of real estate or something in Palm Beach.
I think it was, there was some, he was making a run at some property or something.
Right. And Trump won, and they're both kind of egomaniacs, so they just didn't talk after that and didn't like each other. I don't care why you don't talk to the guy. Like, if you're not talking to the guy, I appreciate that you're not fucking talking to the guy.
Yeah.
But Trump, one of the things Brad Edwards said is that all of the powerful people that he reached out to in 08, 07, 08, and he reached out to all of them told him to fuck off, except Donald Trump. And he went and interviewed Donald Trump by the pool, I think at Mar-a-Lago or something, and Trump talked about this guy for a long time, which is very, very interesting. And I say all that because we know he was friends with him for a lot of years. We know that people like Maria Farmer have been ignored when she talked about working the front desk at Epstein's office in the 90s and Trump coming in there fucking 3-4 times a week. People don't like when she gives that testimony. They love it when she gives the Clinton testimony and all the other testimonies, but not that one. And, there's definitely some creepy videos and some creepy things going on. The part that has really, really stuck something in my craw, though, is the developments this year under his Justice Department and his reaction to it. One thing we know about Donald Trump is that when it comes to polls on issues, the guy knows every fucking poll. He knows where the pulse of the people is on certain things. That's, I think, a large reason why he's been so effective over the last 11 years at winning elections and winning on issues, because he's like, okay, 54% of Americans are pissed about this. That's my issue. Let's dig into it. Yet when it comes to the Epstein thing, it is the one thing that he appears to be as blind as a fucking bat on. And he goes out of his way to, he started trying to say it was like a Democrat hoax or something. And mind you, this is a guy who had like Bill Clinton in his back pocket. So that's definitely not the case. And so like, what do you make of all that, considering the fact that he did have inextricable links to him, considering the fact that his original AG when Epstein died was, the son of the man who gave Epstein his first start, when you consider the fact that there's all these weird connections pointing back to him, Alex Acosta, the whole bit. What do you make of Donald Trump's reaction this year, trying to say that, like, oh, there are no Epstein files?
This is pure conjecture. I think that let's look at it. Let's say there's content there, and because the behavior of the FBI director and the attorney general, it was like a 180, right? From where they were to where they ended up. So what happened in that intervening period of time? Did they see something where, and it spans across this archetype of influencers, shakers, movers in the United States, that would tear at the fabric of our society, and they're doing us, they're protecting us, which I think is insulting.
Yeah.
So that's one scenario. The other scenario is there's not enough, there's nothing there to prosecute.
My boy Brett was telling me in the gym yesterday about how much he has to stretch before and after a workout more than he did 5 years ago, because that's what happens when you get a little bit older. When you age, you start to wake up with stiff joints, but you also see things like your nails breaking, and even your skin starts lacking that same smooth glow it's always had naturally. It sucks, but it doesn't have to. That's where Bubs Naturals collagen peptides come in. Starting in your mid-20s, your body naturally produces less collagen every year. And collagen is the protein that holds everything together. It's literally the glue of the body. With Bubs, you can help restore your collagen levels closer to what your body naturally had in your youth. That means stronger joints, healthier hair and nails, smoother skin, and faster recovery. And it's super easy to use. Just mix Bubs into your coffee, smoothie, or juice every morning. Me personally, I like to take it right at lunch. It's tasteless, odorless, dissolves instantly, and doesn't have clumps or weird aftertaste. But here's what makes Bubs truly different though. The brand is a tribute to former Navy SEAL Glenn "Bub" Dorey, a national hero who gave his life to saving Americans in Benghazi, Libya. Glenn's call sign was Bub, and he was the kind of guy who always pushed for self-improvement and helped everyone around him. That DNA is woven into the Bubs brand. To honor him, Bubs donates 10% of all their profits to charity, starting with the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. On top of that, Bubs is built to the highest standard. No junk, zero sweeteners or fillers. It's third-party tested, NSF certified for sport, Whole30 approved, and sustainably sourced from grass-fed, pasture-raised cattle. It's trusted by over 100,000 customers and was named Best Collagen of 2024 by Health.com. So live better for longer with Bubs. For a limited time only, our listeners are going to get 20% off at Bubs Naturals by using code Julian at checkout. Just head to bubsnaturals.com. That link is in my description below. Use code Julian and you're all set. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them I sent you.
How would there be nothing to prosecute? Especially when there's someone like you, for example, who can use open source intelligence, meaning you don't need a warrant. It is available to the public to be able to say, there's a victim, there's a bartender, there's a dude down there, there's a victim and a dude down there going to a bedroom. That victim's 14 years old. Here's the time, stamp, and date.
Yeah. So my analysis would be impeached and attacked, and defense counsel would, say this isn't a certified sworn law enforcement officer. This is not evidence. It's clues and leads. They would have to go and take my tips and develop prosecutable evidence, because location data is, again, it's a probabilistic assessment. So
yes.
So I could point them in the right direction, assuming that they needed me to do that. But you also have victim statements
Yes.
that have been deposed.
Yes.
By prosecutors. So I don't. Your question was, what do I make of it? I don't. There's one of two scenarios, and that's they're protecting us from what we can't handle, or everybody's looked at it and said there's nothing that we can't secure indictments on what we have. I don't know.
Did you see Kash Patel on Joe Rogan back in June?
Was that his his mea culpa, or was that So
that was when he talked about Epstein.
Yeah.
So that was quintessential.
Bro, trust me.
Literally, that was quintessential.
From if you do a semantic analysis of Kash when he was, I don't know if he had been nominated. Yeah, I think he had been nominated, and he went on Rogan with his big Kash.
It would have been so. He probably went on Sean Ryan shortly before being nominated. Rogan was when he was already in.
Okay. So there was Rogan when he went to basically go do here's what we have on Epstein as the FBI director. And then he was on Rogan.
I think he was only on there once. It was in June.
Okay. You do a semantic analysis of the Kash before and the Kash after.
I'm going to bury the Hoover building and turn it into a museum.
It's the guy is on his back foot. And what do you make of that? And the Attorney General is on her back foot too. I think that they are trying to manage a narrative that they don't believe.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's true, but I suspect that is true. And there's a part of me that says, well, first, I'd love to be a fly on the wall to see the people that have talked to them and what the nature of those conversations is, to see how bad it is. And secondly, a part of me does go, what power do they really have?
Yeah.
Which is a sad,
Yeah.
low bar. But you know, when he went on there with Joe, though, this was the part that I don't think is defensible, right? It's one thing if you're being forced through very dark forces to not be able to say what you want to say because worse things are going to happen because of those dark forces. It's a whole nother thing when you don't know the fucking case. And there was about a 12-minute segment there with Joe Rogan that was just quintessential classic Joe Rogan, like why he's the GOAT, where he just buried Cash or let Cash bury himself like a childhood dead hamster. I mean, it was like horrible in the sense that Cash revealed multiple times in there that he didn't even know some of the basics of the case. Yeah. And it's like, you're the head of the FBI. You went in there screaming that everything in there is a conspiracy or whatever, and you're going to get to the bottom of it. It doesn't help that you got one eye hunting and one eye fishing. I'm already not like inclined to trust you just looking at that. No offense.
Yeah.
But like, then you go in there and you don't even know where the cameras were on or how long they were allegedly on or where the or the whole background and detail on the staff at the prison when he allegedly killed himself and the whole bit. It's like, dude, you got to give me more than that.
Yeah, either that or he knows, and it's easier to claim, to be ignorant.
I guess.
But I guess if you've sworn to take an oath and you're being pressured, coerced, isn't that when you resign and say, I can't in good faith execute?
Yeah, no, it's a fair point.
I'm not being Pollyannish about it. Like you have to make decisions all the time that are hard. But for something like this, if we do have a situation where a group of people got around a table and said, here's how we need to manage this story and control it, and you two are going to have to go out and take the arrows. I mean, within 6 months, you're asking me to violate my oath. If you're the FBI director, if there's information that gives you probable cause to investigate a crime, you don't get to decide whether you should do it or not.
Now, not to get really dark here, but to get really dark, what if they come to you and say, you like your mom, you like your girlfriend, like your brother? You want them to live a long, healthy life? I mean, I hate to be that guy, but that shit does happen sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I haven't rushed out, a Substack post with pictures and graphics and, because this is a law enforcement. This is a real thing. It's not a marketing. Somebody did do that where they got a data set, and they wrote a story. It was pretty inconclusive, and there were no names named. But to your point, this is a matter for people that have badges to seek warrants and investigate.
Right.
Not citizen sleuths to hold them accountable and do their job for them. And so, whether it's dark forces, you start naming names and you expose yourself to all sorts of legal matters that, and it's the responsibility of law enforcement to hold people accountable to the law. If they're not going to do it.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
You're sitting on you're sitting on this device. You're not sticking anything up it's only, they're up your ass, no doubt. Metaphorically.
Yeah, you got to watch your words around here.
But yeah, you're there's a I don't know how it's configured, but it's basically, monitoring your reactions by virtue of, tightening your ass.
I know, but like, what if you had like beans for lunch or something? You just got to take a shit. They're like, you're lying.
Yeah, you might, or you have to tell them. But yeah, and you're sitting there as they're looking at you through the glass, and you're like,
Yeah.
Okay, do I look like I'm evading? Do I look cool, calm?
You would look like you're evading all the time just because you look pissed off, like you're ready to get to your next project, and whoever's in front of you is wasting your time. Like, I feel like that wouldn't change if you went into a polygraph. You'd be like, oh, God damn it, fuck.
It's one of the most. I mean, it's designed to be that way because they need to elicit. But in my first one, I got into it with the guy to the point where, he's like, you're not in control.
You're like, I'm not passing.
And I'm like, I'm not, I didn't like apply. I was asked to be here. I'm doing you a favor. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm not here because I filled out an application. Anyway.
All right. Well, let's get back into where we left off with the Epstein stuff. So, come a little bit this way if you want.
Yep.
Perfect. So, the part about you being, I want to go back to the part about you being able to track where a phone goes or something like that. And, like the example I gave, okay, person, bartender, person looks like victim. Here's how you track that with all this backdated. Person looks like, person that's going to take advantage of the victim. Here's how you backed all that data. Victim and person leave, go to what's clearly a bedroom unit, stay there both on top of each other for, 2 hours, one can assume. When you then would mix that with depositions taken from victims, I would imagine that is quite a compelling case if a prosecutor wanted to give it. So if you have that type of information, I don't understand how they could ignore that.
Yeah, I think it's so the rules of this goes into rules of evidence, and is that location data evidence of anything? Can you prove that the location of that device is actually the device of the person you are claiming it to belong to? And this gets into a lot of the there are a lot of commercial companies that do really good things, that can do a lot of good things. And in a lot of cases, they develop, information, and they're looking for somebody to be able to action it who can conduct inherently governmental functions. They go knock on somebody's door. They do an inherently, the job, the tasks that we want somebody who has a badge, who knows how to do these things. When you have freelance OSINTers, open source, and the freelancers are really good because they're clever. That breaks down in the rules of evidence because it wasn't conducted on a government computer by a certified investigator. Were the rights, did the rights of the accused, were they violated? Because
how would they be violated if it's open?
Well, this gets into a lot of the confusion within the government, particularly within law enforcement, about where does the Fourth Amendment apply when it's commercially available. Open source is a different story. Commercially available, where you had to go and purchase or acquire, specific data sets. Carpenter sort of resolved those issues, but it's still very easy for defense to attack the provenance of the information. How did you get this lead? How did you know to go knock on this person's door? if it's not following that chain of custody, that rule of evidence, it's difficult to keep that from being suppressed.
Couldn't it be redone though? That's the thing. The data's there. So let's say you were imperfect. Let's say you, Mike, were.
Put it to you this way: the federal law enforcement agencies have these tools, these systems, these data sets. They could do it.
Redo it.
They could do it on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Because it's all there. The data, their phones were already there.
Yep.
The data's available.
The historical take is there. So if
a convicted felon was the one who gathered it from their bedroom or something, they're like, well, that's not going to play well in court, then agent so-and-so could do it. And again, I want to make the distinction here. Like if you look, one case I'm thinking about, for example, is the Silk Road case with Ross Ulbricht, who obviously was pardoned and is no longer in prison after giving a double life sentence, which that whole thing's crazy. But the way they even got to him was actually illegal. The FBI hacked into a server in Iceland completely illegally and broke the Fourth Amendment, and that was just conveniently ignored. I get that. But like what's not illegal, for example, is you'll see the FBI or police departments solve cold cases by there was one example I'm thinking of. They followed a guy to the Philadelphia International Airport 2 years ago and waited for him to have a coffee, finish it, and throw it out, and went into the trash, which is publicly available, took it out, DNA tested it, and they solved a 30-year-old murder.
I'm sure they had a warrant to do that.
They did not.
They did not have a warrant.
They did not. Let's double check that. It was the case in PA, Dave Spilatra, Dave cold case, PA airport. It was Dave Sinopoli. I'm going to read this straight from CBS News so that people understand the context. But Lancaster police arrested 68-year-old David Sinopoli for the alleged 1975 murder of a 19-year-old woman on Sunday morning. He had been identified through a DNA sample obtained from a coffee cup at the Philadelphia International Airport. Let me skip down to where they got. On February 11, 2022, investigators obtained DNA from Sinopoli from a coffee cup he used and threw it into a trash can before traveling at the Philadelphia International Airport. The coffee cup was then submitted to DNA Labs International for testing. It was determined that the DNA on the coffee cup contained a mixture of DNA with one male contributor. Additional blood samples from the 1975 crime scene further matched the DNA sample from the coffee cup. Now, it doesn't say it explicitly right there, but I'm 99% sure they did not have a warrant for this.
Yeah, so if I suppose that'd be an interesting case file. If they wanted a DNA sample and they would have brought him in and asked him to submit to a DNA sample. So it'd be interesting to see what the logic was behind surreptitiously acquiring the DNA sample.
Because here's the thing, trash is public. Once he throws it into a public trash can,
and if that's how they argued it and didn't have that evidence suppressed because we just went dumpster diving and
you use public. This is what I'm saying, and this is also what's scary about this stuff. In this case, it's a good context because we're trying to solve a horrible thing. But you could see where this gets a little scary just because people don't realize the data they're giving up. But when I press accept on something, I am now putting myself in a position to where things like that could get tracked and later used publicly and openly by someone else in their bedroom because I said yes.
Yeah, or through about a month ago, it was revealed to members of Congress that the Durham investigation had subpoenaed cell phone data relating to the special counsel.
Yeah.
And Lindsey Graham, big supporter of the Patriot Act. Josh Hawley, big supporter of the Patriot Act. A bunch of others were their records, their cell phone data was collected through the intercept methodologies and the FISA court that they all support. And when they found out, their righteous indignation that how dare you.
Rules for thee, not for me.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Lindsey Graham's.
And these are particularly Lindsey Graham is the big, you've got nothing to hide. What are you worried about? You're not a terrorist. What are you worried about? every camera he rushed to support the Patriot Act was bolstered with this. We're looking for terrorists. You're not a terrorist. You have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Okay. So fast forward, to a period of time in 10 years where things have gone really high and right, and there's an administration that wants to understand all of the cohorts that are freedom, Second Amendment, pick your political bent. And we want to start tracking them because we have the historical data and we can couch it into all sorts of righteous means, or we don't even need to. We have the capability, so we can do it. So, senators, you telling us that we should accept all of these surveillance capabilities and methods because we've got nothing to hide. It's not about we've got nothing to hide. It's you don't have the right.
Yeah.
Even if I have nothing to hide.
Yeah, the road to hell is paved with alleged good intentions.
Yeah, it's the counterfactual. All those that are, delivering something through the guise of kindness and virtue.
Yes.
Are most susceptible to evil.
Yeah.
And so it was an interesting to see them really losing their minds with Dan Bongino, who was informing them of this, and they had hearings about it. And these are the same guys who told us, hey, if you've got nothing to hide, what are you worried about?
No, that's the guy I'm watching. Yeah. Dan Bongino. Because he was this very partisan, conservative, firebrand commentator, had all these big opinions on stuff, always looked like the vein in his forehead was going to pop and cause an aneurysm.
Yeah.
And I would say that now the vein looks even bigger for an entirely different reason. Every time I see that guy talk, it is like he is holding in all the trauma of a nation's history. And that dam wants to break, but isn't breaking. I do not see that same type of dam on Cash or on what's her face? The
Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi.
Yep.
I do not see that same thing. Bongino looks like he is in pain.
Yeah.
When he is doing some of these appearances and whatever. So I am very much interested to see if at some point that will break. That said, I have had, I believe now it's 4 different people, but 3 prior to last April, meaning in the year before this past April, stand out there from different contexts, totally different walks of life, but people who are in the know on certain things and assure me that we would never see the Epstein files, which, I wasn't surprised, but what they said to me was off record, but they all gave the same answer as to why. And when I see, it was a very broad answer, but I was like, yep. And now when I see the way that the backtracking has happened, to bring some of this back into English so that people can at least understand without me saying specifically anything that they said. When you're talking about a situation where people who are currently in a government fear that something this deep and this widespread would crash the entire system, forget just the government, because once people had literal confirmation of everything that they're totally suspicious about, but once it was there on the page and literally confirmed, there could be some sort of enormous civil uprising. And, and now we're getting to really big terms here and stuff, but stuff in the country that would be quite unpopular. And I want to know. I'm a citizen. I have a right to know. When I look at that, though, and I listen to some of these people who all also want to know as well and want the public to know, I see where the conundrum is, at least for something like this. So I'm bringing this back to you, because you're looking at it from the outside and you were at least able to, paint on a page like, whoa, 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 look at that, look at that, look at that. When you first heard about this case, obviously it was very dark and you're like, oh my God. And you're like, wow, this guy knew a lot of people. But then when you first start actually working on it and you start to see the data popping up and you're seeing it's in years after he's convicted and you're seeing the types of people it is, did you have a moment where you were just like,
didn't see that coming, or 100%. And that's, I think, the risk is there needs to be this faith or foundational belief or belief in our systems that we have good people who do the right thing and don't need, they know what the right thing is. As I'm sort of developing this list, there were moments where I was like, this doesn't make sense. I must be wrong.
You must be wrong.
Yeah. Because my cognitive dissonance was, he wouldn't do something like that. He wouldn't be affiliated with this guy because I have this bias that was running contrary to what the data was saying.
But then the data starts painting a story.
I'm back testing it, and I got to make sure. Use other data sets. Is it the same? Is it this? Am I seeing the same thing? And the data, a multi-decimal latitudinal and longitudinal coordinate does not lie.
Yeah. Did you get mad?
I think that was one of the that's one of those inflection points where you start listening to people and you're like, you're full of shit. Yeah. But what's, I think, the more troubling aspect of this is I don't think they're really afraid of going to jail. I think they're more concerned about their public image. Which, what does that say about someone's character?
I think there's also a lot of people who forget just their public image. What's the underlying cause there that it's tied to? They enjoy the power they have going into rooms anywhere.
Yep.
And they know that if they lose the public image, they will lose.
So too goes the power. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so it comes back to basic human, desire, greed, the whole bit. I don't mean to oversimplify it, but I think there's a lot of that. And also, the number in a first world country like America, this would not be true in some other countries around the world, sadly. But in a country like this, I'm happy to see it true that if there's one thing there's no coming back from, it's fucking a kid or doing, being pedophile. It's like the lowest thing
there's no,
you can possibly be.
There's no Charlie Sheen, rehab tour.
Right. I was thinking.
Well, just look at the number of people who told us for years that President Biden has never been sharper, never been more on top of the game, who clearly, that you're not, that's not the case. You see it every day, but to call it out, put your place in the West Wing in jeopardy. So you're gonna perpetuate that narrative and toe the line.
Yeah, and I also think when you have threats behind the scenes, that has to be taken into account for sure. With this guy, it's very hard for me to not see him being tied to Mossad. Because there are just it's like, how many touch points do you need before it's like, okay, this is just kind of what it is. That said, I also think that at some point along the way, of course, and if you were, my educated guess would be this probably was the late 90s. I think that our intelligence services figured out who he was for sure and realized that because of some of the compromise that he had built up, they were not, as crazy as this sounds, just hear me out on this, people, they were not in a position to full stop it, which is bizarre, but I could see where that argument comes in from an intelligence perspective. And I think what they probably did is said, you're going to pay a tax, pal. I think they probably went to him and said, we know who you are. We know what you're doing. Fuck you. This is horrible. You know that we know that we can't stop it because of some other things and some things that you've done. So that being said, it's like when a bunch of people are holding a gun to each other in a standoff. It's like, you're going to pay a 10% tax now. You're getting this information. We want to know some of it.
Yep.
And I think that also is a part of the reason. And again, this is all hypothesis, educated guess. I don't know any of this, but I think that's also some of the reason that there is a covering of tracks, because at some point, it's not like he was a guy that CIA had cultivated, but he was probably a guy that they got some intelligence from. And it's like, well, are you going to admit that a dude who was sex trafficking at the darkest, worst, highest levels on your own fucking property was someone that you went to and technically allowed for this to happen?
Yep. Yeah. There are if you work in the field, you are going to have to be able to work with people that you find despicable.
Yes.
It's just, you're not there to make friends. You are there to extract intelligence. And some of the people that have actionable, valuable intelligence are terrible.
Yes.
So there's some reality to the business. But I think that this is where maybe they thought they could control him, keep the narrative tight. And he goes and gets himself arrested. And then you have a U.S. attorney saying, no, there's nothing here. He's linked to intelligence, and we're not pressing the issue.
Yeah. And you're referring to Alex Acosta.
Yeah. Where did that come from? That's, I think he would know.
Which, by the way, did you hear about the other prosecutor this week? And this story? Maybe you could use your little cell phone powers on this one. It'd be going back a big ways, though. But it was this guy, Matthew Menschel, who was prosecuting him down in Florida and left the prosecution shortly before the deal went through. They found records of him socializing with Epstein like in Aspen in the years before that, and then in the years after his conviction, 2011, 2013, 2015, when this guy was now in the private sector having dinners with him, the whole bit. And it's like, are you fucking so you knew what he was about? I'll even give you the benefit of the doubt and say when you were in Aspen or wherever you were in 01 with him, you didn't know. I think you knew, but you didn't know.
Yep.
But then you work the case. You had access to everything. And you go to dinners with this guy? Like, what are you doing in your personal life that he's got on video? That's what I want to know.
Yep. It's like Harvey Weinstein. Everybody knew he was a pig.
Yeah.
But yet, that's just Harvey.
It's just Harvey. Yeah, I had Sarma Mangalis in here who wasn't even Hollywood or anything. And she even had a story because she was in the New York scene. She didn't know Harvey at all, but she knew who he was. And one day just walking down the street, she's like, now you're like, oh my God. He just assumed he could do anything. He said, are you an actress? Like she's a good looking woman. But she was like, no.
Yeah.
Like that he went right to it. Yeah. That's what he wanted. He's I can get you a role.
I have a trade here. How about I have something to trade.
Yeah. Now there was a story I was just getting, because we don't have Deef in here today, but he gave me the link just now. That's what I was looking for while you were answering that last question. So thank you for your patience here. But there was a story that the Washington Post put out in May 2023 called, and I'll put it up here for at least you and me to look at, called Bill Gates, Leon Black, Thomas Pritzker, One Day in the Life of Jeffrey Epstein. And what they did is they got access to his calendar on September 8th, 2014 and tracked all these meetings. And they were able to track where the meetings took place. So I'm remembering this from when I read this a couple years ago. It's a long article, so I'm not going through it right now, but people go through and you can check this on archive.is by copying the link in to get around the paywall for this. That's the Mike Benz trick. But He met with Bill Gates. I believe one of the meetings, if I remember correctly, was in the morning at his East 71st Street apartment. And then the next meeting was in Midtown that they walked to together or something. Imagine just like going back in time and seeing Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein walking down the street together. It's like Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein, but it's absolutely crazy. But question being, if you looked at something like this, could you go back and buy data and show me everywhere they went that day?
2014, sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
I want you to do that.
Yeah.
And if you get good information, I want you to put a Substack out because this is already publicly available.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be breaking
so
it.
Do these. So Pritzker. That's that's a name. Yeah.
These are all names, man.
Yeah.
Leon Black's on there.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so I might already have this because Mortimer Zuckerman.
He's a big media mogul.
Yep.
Leon Botstein, Barnaby Marsh, Ramsey Elcoli, Catherine Rumler. I believe Catherine was J.P. Morgan, if I remember correctly. Let me see if I get that right.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is, they got... The executive assistants were good about telling their principal exactly where they needed to be and when.
Yes. And, the Leon Black thing's very dark.
Yep.
Because he financed Jeffrey Epstein in the last 5 to 7 years of his life to the tune of $257 million.
Yep.
This is a guy who he and his wife were the chair of MoMA. He was the founder of Apollo Global, which also I do have to give a shout out to Josh Harris, who gets shit all the time as a shitty sports owner. I know I don't like him as Sixers owner, but Josh Harris was a co-founder of Apollo, and he was the guy who was going to take over Apollo. It was always known. And then he was pushed out because he wanted Black out of the company because he said this is bullshit and put his foot down. And you don't see enough guys like standing up and doing that. But for Josh, I know that was like his lifelong dream to be able to have complete control of the company he founded. And he
had to make a choice.
Yes. And he made the right choice. Yeah. I do appreciate that a lot. So
my, I think I already have this built out.
This one.
I mean, I have obviously more, but the three specific.
Yeah, I mean, I got a date for you. Yeah. I got addresses. I got a lot for you to work with right here. The Wall Street Journal, I should say, has a lot for you to work with. But
it wouldn't be too difficult.
I would love to see that because the call never came, but you made outbound calls to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what was the nature, without revealing who you called or maybe some specifics that could be off record? What was the nature of the reaction there? Like, this is too dark, stay the fuck out of this, or something else?
Yeah, the reaction was, I will push this where I can, but I'm not going to push it with an agenda.
What do you mean with an agenda?
I'm not going to die on this hill. I will let people know who are attached to the case that we have a data set, and if they want to call you, they will call you. And
they never did. Okay. So there was another one, and this one always stuck in my craw.
And this was right around the time, because I was in that building a lot telling them about their grinder problem.
Their grinder problem?
Their grinder problem.
Like the app grinder?
The app grinder.
Oh, please fill me in on this.
Yeah. So everybody knows what the cohort and the audience that Grindr serves. I got involved because a private equity firm with ties to the CCP was acquiring Grindr.
Okay.
And that struck me as odd because what's China up to? Uh-huh. Just was not wasn't like IAC, adding to their portfolio of hotels.com and, their other online dating, OkCupid or whatever their apps are. And, in that data set, because Grindr is not really anybody that wanted to bid, place an ad, there was a lot of Grindr data in these commercial data sets. And so one of the questions was, why are we seeing so much Grindr? And then the second question is, why is China interested in Grindr? And so I did some analysis in my, national security home office and was seeing dwells of devices originating at sensitive government locations, going to various places in and around the DC area for about a dwell time of 20 minutes or so, dwelling with another device that wasn't necessarily, it wasn't a meeting, an off-site meeting between two government employees. Although I did see a hookup between two government employees who probably didn't know they were.
That's nice.
And so, meanwhile, we're seeing this proliferation of people in national security positions, their patterns of life. I can see them where they start, where they meet, where they go home to other buildings. This is not an app that should be owned by the CCP. And CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment that analyzes acquisitions of national companies of national prominence or national security prominence, they intervened and forced the repatriation of Grindr back to U.S. ownership. But spending time explaining to the senior cadre at the FBI what Grindr is, and that took a lot of creativity in how I was communicating. And there was, and your folks will appreciate this. The inflection of my voice probably dropped to the point that irritates the shit out of them. Because I'm like, sir, Grindr is not an app you find the love of your life on. Well, what are you doing with it, sir? This is aggregation of immediate gratification and sensitive site exploitation.
Yeah.
So
would it kill these guys to go on Ashley Madison or something?
Yeah.
I mean, it's more normal, I guess, for like blackmail purposes.
Yep.
It's less. It's more like you got a guma, but it's like, oh, you got a wife at home, but
right.
You seen a dude.
But
I work for us now.
I was walking the halls with this type of information, these types of data sets and what one could with high probability infer about patterns of life of people. And we weren't, it wasn't a witch hunt to out anybody. It was, this is high valuable large language model training data.
Mike's like, if you're gay, we're going to find you, boy.
Yeah. But you'd see,
you don't want that in CCP hands. I completely understand.
I don't think so.
So you assisted in stopping that.
I think so.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now,
not to let a great American company.
That's right.
Got to keep these great American
keep
companies
them right here in America. But with all the data that you're getting, you're tracking location stuff. Obviously, you're tracking patterns of life and all that. Every great investigator I've ever talked with, from any level of anything, whether it be a detective or a guy at FBI or, someone who's tracking stuff for intelligence, they'll always say the phrase, follow the money, right? That's what they're looking for. The money is always going to be the end all be all answer. I mean, you solve murder cases following the money.
Yep.
How much of that I mean, I don't even know if that incorporates into anything you do, but how much of that, if it does, incorporates into what you do for you to be able to put like 2 and 2 together where you're like, ooh, I can track that he's moving money to this. Can you even track like if they're moving money to this bank account or something with the data you look at?
No, that's an interceptor. That's accessing.
Okay.
And I've been asked to look at, can you detect money laundering or can you detect money layering and, things that are financial in nature. You're not necessarily looking at flow of funds, but, is somebody visiting an ATM machine, 7 different ATM machines in the period of an hour because they're layering withdrawals or deposits. And that's hard. That's hard to do because it's like, I need to detect you at this ATM at this millisecond that you're there. But financial analysis, it's a harder beast because you need to get into the systems. And you remember, like, I didn't hack, engineer, intercept, or steal. So I'm not hacking into these systems to understand these patterns of life, which, from a cost perspective, it's like if I don't have to hack to detect the flow of funds, but I can understand patterns of life that give me other avenues, is that a more cost effective, faster way of getting to what I'm getting to what I need in order to build to write an affidavit or a request for a warrant.
Gotcha. Yeah, because one of the threads I've never seen someone pull on is the 1992 thread with Robert Maxwell. So when Tara Palmieri did that podcast, she did 2. One was called like The Maxwells. The other one was called like Epstein. And they were both 8 parts. It was basically a documentary where they just didn't have cameras. She's going around interviewing people. She had Virginia Giuffre coming around with her, who's now deceased, who was a victim of Epstein. But one of the most surreal interviews I've ever heard was she got Juan Alessi, the housekeeper for Epstein. He agreed to go on tape. Yep. And so this was one of those situations where she and Virginia showed up to his house that had a gate outside of it and introduced who it was. And Virginia just said, "Oh my God, Juan." He goes, "Oh my God, yeah, come in." And they come in and they ask, like, "Hey, we're doing an investigation. Would you agree to be recorded?" And to his credit, he said yes. And it's one of the most painful things to listen to because you simultaneously are like, how the fuck could you let this happen? And you also feel bad for the guy at the same time. It's a very strange dynamic. But to his credit, he was very forthcoming about a lot of things. And one of the things he laid out that stuck with me is he goes, he worked for Jeffrey in like the late 80s. And he's like, he had wealth. Nothing crazy.
That's right. I saw this.
Yeah, he lived on the
and all of a sudden, it's like, yeah.
Right. He said 1992, something crazy happened, man. Like, he had the plane, he got the apartment and the Macy's
like Tony
apartment.
Montana there.
Sorry. But you get the power, then you get the money. But anyway, so he was like, he was balling, like hundreds of millions of dollars seemingly came through the door. And the connection here, I'm bringing this up because of some of the L Brands work you did, but Leslie Wexner signed over that apartment on East 71st Street to him effectively for free. It's the #1 townhouse in the entire
signed
city.
Over power of attorney.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, more than that. But I'm saying like literally his dwelling and gave it to him.
Yep.
At the end of 1991, November 1991, Robert Maxwell died off the coast of Africa and on his yacht. Now, they say he killed himself. I don't think he did. I think Robert Maxwell was a raging narcissist who, we also know was a prolific spy. He was most likely approached by his people, kind of like Frank Pentangeli in Godfather 2, and said, listen,
got to do the right thing.
It's over. Got to do the right thing, like the Roman army used to do. And he couldn't do it. And so they probably, I am speculating, but they probably did it for him. And ironically, Robert Maxwell left behind like a $450 million pension scam and his estate destitute. What's interesting about that is you have a wealthy scion leaving behind a fraud that's not exactly looked upon well by society, and yet his 2 sons who were put on trial for it after he died were found not guilty in British courts. That's pretty hard to do. Secondly, whether you like the guy or not, and I see no reason to like him, but he was put in a position to be a very effective businessman. He had major companies that made a lot of money. And the idea that suddenly he was worth nothing and needed to bilk his pension for his employees at the Daily Mail as the 2nd largest publication in the world makes this is when Princess Diana was alive too. Like they're printing money left and right. No way. The fact then that Jeffrey Epstein gets all this money funneled to him in the immediate aftermath of that, and we know by estimations is worth somewhere, he was worth at that point somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 to $450 million. And no one knows how this guy ever made any money besides that.
Given financial advice as whoever he worked for.
Which no one ever saw him do. That was another thing Juan Alessi said. He's like, I never really saw him work.
Yeah.
Never saw him giving advice.
A guy who's like, the guy who is really good at hiding money. Yeah. That's a skill that you don't just watch a YouTube video.
That's right.
And how to. You're an accountant, right? And you know how to do this. So.
That's what I'm saying. So no one's ever pulled on that thread. And the problem is it's before we got iPhones and stuff like that. So I don't think you could do it. But there has to be someone who's good who could find a way to pull on that thread and find something there, because I have no proof to be able to say definitively this is what it is, but there is a lot of circumstantial evidence when you look at the players involved and who they were involved with that says somehow that got from point A to point B.
The money trail's got to be there. This isn't, we're not funneling $888 to avoid a suspicious activity report. So I think a lot, this is how I look at all of this. Like, all right, I have sort of common sense informed by experience. Occam's razor. When you try to assign some complex explanation to something, when in reality, it's like what you're seeing is what it is.
Yeah.
You don't need to build all of this complexity into understanding. So what is all of this? Well, experience and common sense is telling me there's more to it than just a guy who got lucky. And whether it was Mossad or there was definitely an influence operation underway, because what's the point of all of this?
Right.
Who who benefits? I don't know, but there are too many facts that just don't make sense in trying to assign them logical explanations.
Correct.
Yeah, he was, really good, or why? And if you look at like why Epstein, because he was probably controllable and he could be told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's more to it than common sense is what I'm saying. There's more. There's something here. If we have, I think from a government perspective, I think we overclassify. The 25-year-old OSINT analyst, reads an article in the New York Times and thinks there's something there that should be looked at. That becomes a, top secret artifact.
That's right.
When we're dealing with, human intelligence and operations where people could get killed because they're working with us, classify that shit. Like, Americans do not need to know.
Mm.
But when we start over classifying, then, the bias is to do something that maybe you wouldn't normally do, but I can classify it and keep it from transparency.
Right.
And I think we've gone so far in classifying everything, that we don't know how to unravel something. Like we got ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
This was good intentions. But this was an operation that went bad, and we need to shed daylight on that if there was involvement.
Well, that's the thing. It's like a bad gambler. You get so deep in the hand that you just have to keep doubling down, and it feels like they've had to be dishonest so many times about
that
this.
They believe
Yeah.
whatever they're telling themselves.
Yes.
I don't know, but again, what I do know is that any common sense person's going to look at this,
Of course.
and say, "What?"
Yeah, it's a unifying issue.
So
Yeah.
and I think the administration would be surprised by the public's reaction if there was something to be transparent about that might hurt the fabric, or I think they'd be surprised by the reasonableness of Americans to say, okay, the transparency.
Really?
Yeah.
You believe that?
Yeah. If people violated laws, broke laws, we need prosecutions, not special count. We need people to get prosecuted. We don't have enough of that. But I think that the American people would be able to say, okay, we're not. Somebody's going to be accountable, but this notion that we need to be protected by people who know better, I think is how we get ourselves into these predicaments.
Yes.
Patriot Act.
Yep.
Well, if you saw the intel Senator, tell me the intel. Show me the intel that you're seeing that necessitates bulk data collection on every American. And don't tell me it's pedophilia and Al-Qaeda.
Yep.
Tell us. And you might just find public opinion saying, okay, we agree.
Yeah, but they would never want that. They don't want to put power in the hands of the people.
Because it's so powerful to say, if you saw the intel that I saw,
if you knew what I
knew, I was read in, I went into the skiff. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you see that, 1 minute they are the proponent of civil rights and privacy, and they get the read on, and now they are all in.
Yes.
They are. This was cool. I got a classified brief. This is cool. I'm all in. And I think that's, power is seductive.
I was watching last weekend Dark Knight Rises, the third Batman from Christopher Nolan. Hadn't watched that one in years, which, by the way, underrated movie. Like, it's a fucking banger of a movie all the way through. That one got some shit because, like, The Dark Knight was a perfect movie. So people are like, how can you follow that up and everything? But Dark Knight Rises is an incredible movie. But watching it now, it came out in 2012. It was probably written in, like, 2010. The underlying themes socially in that script. This is pre, like, this whole era and everything.
Yeah.
Man, did they really nail it.
Yeah.
When you're talking about, like, the fact that it's elites versus everybody else,
Yep.
and there's a growing anger underpinning that can lead to chaos. I see so many parallels there, and you look at history. This is how societies fall. Like when you get a too concentrated elite that says we know best, and this is everyone, whether it be government or the people that pay them, right, and the circle of life that exists there. There is almost no better example than this case, than the Epstein case, when you are looking at that thematically in society, and when you see the clear, very public cover-up that's occurring to protect all of these people, whether it be people in government, but frankly, in more cases, in fact, people that are just powerful figures in banking or entertainment, or you insert blank here, these very ultra wealthy people. It's like, you're going to disintegrate public trust more and more, especially when people are seeing less and less opportunity.
Yeah. Or there are two sets of laws.
Yes.
I can tell you, if I was where you were in the proximity of a known sexual exploitation ring, you wouldn't be able to keep cops out of your house.
Right.
And so I think that's what is being projected here, is that there are two sets of standards. And if the narrative is, the fabric of society would be torn to pieces. If I think that's a theory. I think they've convinced themselves of that. I don't buy it, because I think there would be overwhelming support to see people who know better being held accountable.
Yes.
Notwithstanding their importance to the financial infrastructure of the United States and projecting, doing the work of the Treasury overseas under the mantle of a rock that may be black.
I see what you did there. That's good. Yeah. No, the financial terrorism, internal financial terrorism is a very, very real thing.
Absolutely.
And it puts the government in a very precarious situation, especially when it's a lot of the people they rely on for funding.
Yep. You know what another good movie is that projected or was prescient in where we are today? Fight Club.
Ah, that's
Chuck
an outside
Palahniuk
the box one. Yeah.
was like, a consumerism and
yes,
the haves versus the have-nots, and the sort of the fight back or the pushback by the the working class. Privacy. He hit a lot of those in, was that 99?
Yeah, it was like
Something
98,
like that.
99,
Yep.
something like that. That's
Yep.
interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
Too fat.
Another example, I want to know if you ever looked at this, but this was always fascinating to me. So back in 2021 or 2022, Steve Bannon, former advisor to the president, former head of Breitbart, runs that show, The War Room now, prominent, I guess like right-wing activist, if that's what you want to call him, who's also come in the crosshairs of the government, which is interesting. Steve Bannon released a 30-second-ish video in a trailer, some sort of trailer, of Jeffrey Epstein talking with him on camera. And the only 30 seconds he showed is actually hilarious, where Bannon's like actually pressing him. He goes, "You've been accused of doing some horrific, despicable things to women, and all this and that. Like, what do you have to say for yourself?" It's hard not to laugh, but like Epstein was like, I actually believe the future's women. I'm a big Time's Up guy.
I'm a feminist.
Like with the Brooklyn accent,
Yeah.
It's almost just cruel in
Yeah.
your face, right? So you're just looking at this like, okay, the most prolific sex trafficker in modern history, or just history that we know of, is saying something that comical, and thinking we're going to believe it is crazy. But Bannon pressed this as a forthcoming documentary that includes his sit-downs with Epstein. The timing of when those sit-downs happened, though, is quite fascinating to me. Bannon was fired as advisor to the president in August 2017. And I actually will never forget this day, because I remember it was a cloudy Friday, and I worked near Morristown Airport, where Trump flies into in the summers. And so when he would go there on the weekends, a lot of times on a Friday afternoon, they would shut down fucking 40 roads around there. So I had to go drop off something to a client, and then I was coming up on these roads. I'm like, God damn it, he's flying in. I'm like, it's like this big story that Bannon had been fired. But Steve Bannon got in, maybe you could find this out, got in a car or a train or something and went straight up to New York City and spent the weekend with Jeffrey Epstein and interviewed him, according to Steve himself, for 18 hours on camera. Epstein later talked about this with people. And then Bannon teased that this would come out and then never put it out. Now you have 18 hours of footage with the most prolific trafficker at the middle of the biggest conspiracy that I can remember in my lifetime. And you're not putting that out. I would love to know where else they were that weekend. Just right there. It sounds like they spent a lot of time on camera, but like, where else did they go? Who did they talk to?
Yeah.
And why has that never been released? I bring that up because I think it'd be very interesting to get Mike Yeagley on that, just to like track the cell phone data from that weekend and the week afterwards to see where Epstein went and where Bannon
I'll
went.
put that on the list. I did not. I was not tracking his expose on Jeffrey, but
Okay. Well, now it's on your list.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
We'll leave that one there.
Absolutely.
There's a lot here with Epstein, and I'm sure I'll talk to you off camera, but I am biased here. I would very much like you to release some of your data because I think that would be in the public's best interest. I'm sure people in the comments are going to be challenging you to do that. I know you read those things.
It's having the mirror held up to one's face. So, you never knew. You never knew what you needed to know about your demeanor. I don't do cocaine, by the way.
I didn't think you did cocaine. You look like a Monsters guy to me.
I mean,
And Zins.
nicotine, yes, but cocaine has not.
Not even back in the days as
Nope.
a hockey player?
Never.
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 Good for you. That's hard to do.
I've never smoked dope, smoked marijuana.
Good for you.
It's just never appealed to me.
Yeah.
But so nicotine, caffeine.
All right. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine.
Anyway,
But there were other things we didn't talk about last time that I want to get to. We're going to talk about Palantir. We're going to talk about AI. But I think to kind of get into that, even before we go there, your background long before the whole Syria thing is something we didn't discuss. So you just kind of dumped this one on me towards the end of the last one. But
yeah.
After 9/11, in the years after that, at some point you came into contact with DARPA, which is probably the most mysterious government organization in existence, and did some sort of, as you put it, data work with them. Would you care to explain how you got into contact with them?
Yeah. So post 9/11, there was a concerted effort to fix the gaps in systems that would have been able to detect the plot happening right underneath our noses. It really wasn't a systems problem because we knew about the country, the agencies knew about these guys long before they got here. But there was this rush to be able to aggregate all sorts of commercial data that would reveal anomalies against the baseline of typical behavior. So, did somebody pay with cash when everybody pays with a credit card? That kind of anomaly. Or did somebody fly into an airport and then go rent a car at a different airport? Just those types of things that are not obvious indicators of anything, but they are outliers. And this was before we had the language of large language models or AI as a system that could do all of these things. So DARPA stood up a program called Total Information Awareness, TIA.
Okay.
And DARPA is, my last pitch to DARPA went down in flames. And I think I'm right about the premise, but it's one of those, they were throwing questions, and it's like, I'm not quite there yet. So, but DARPA is not that mysterious. It's basically a bunch of projects that are either looking, 20 years down the horizon as to what the future of warfare looks like, or they're solving, the immediate problem today.
It's got departments.
It's got departments. Yep. They're in downtown Arlington, so you can walk by the building. It's not there's not a big
That's the campus
standoff.
we know about.
Yeah. And so the program was really was characterize it as the first attempt at building a large language model around these data sets that would provide early indicators and warnings of something unusual or suspicious.
And this is like 05, 06.
Yep.
Wow.
The program got shut down because of privacy sensitivities. If you can believe it, because it was, total information awareness, and the logo was like an eye and a panopticon. It just, it looked
Very 33rd degree, if
not
you will.
good optics. But,
Yeah.
back at the time, it was, all right, so what are these data sets? How do we get them? What are we even talking about as, a data set that we would put into this machine, build algorithms or rules to flag these anomalistic characteristics of transactions. Those that is how we are configured. That was, the precursor to kind of how we configure systems. Today, you talk about Palantir. It was the precursor to a system like Palantir, where you've got all of the data and a common operating picture.
Why did they pluck you to work on this? And, approximately ballpark, like how many other people might be working on something like this?
There was some right place, right time, but I had been doing this integration of external data sets into operational business commercial systems.
Okay.
Fuse in these data sets with your point of sale system to give better predictive capability for running your retail operations or supply chain. So I had been doing this before commercial data became, this thing that everybody's focused on. And I could talk about it. I could explain it in a way that made it easy for people to understand what we were talking about.
You mentioned you work with like John Poindexter in there. So John Poindexter was the national security advisor to Reagan.
Correct.
Longtime Navy guy, I
Yep.
think, like a lot of different
Admiral
things with him.
Poindexter. Yeah.
Yeah. So
He was the program manager. So he activated himself. I believe after 9/11, he had already retired, had already been acquitted. So he was
acquitted for the Iran-Contra.
Yeah. So he was looking to get back into the fight after 9/11. And he's a really smart guy. He talks about, Dr. Teller called me and we had this fight about thermodynamics, and I told him he's all wrong. Dr. Teller?
Yeah, like the
Yeah,
nuclear physicist
that guy.
Teller.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he activated himself because he comes from a systems background. He's got a PhD in physics. So kind of the right guy to start developing this system of systems to be an answer to the gaps in intelligence post 9/11.
Okay. So when you what's it like though to be pulled into a place that has access to the brightest minds from the private sector all coming together to work for the government to solve the most complex problems? Like, what is that like the first day you walk in there and realize you're in the middle of this?
Yeah, this is the advice that I give to kids. You don't have talking. You're not learning anything, so it's okay to be, to let the grown-ups at the table talk and learn. Building a system I'd not done a government system of that proportion with that level of ambition. And I'm just sort of jotting down notes okay, how are we going to go? How do we approach American Airlines and ask them for data related to ticket purchases, passenger manifests, without hacking their system?
Yeah, we're violating privacy.
Yeah. We weren't trying to do that. It's like, hey, all hands on deck. This is a counterterror thing. Will you participate voluntarily?
Will you participate
Exactly.
voluntarily?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's about how you did it, right?
Not quite
Elbow
that.
cocked like that?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Before it could go operational, Congress got word of it and pulled funding for it.
Huh. Was that the end of your work with DARPA?
For that program.
That point.
Yeah. Yep.
You later did work with them once you got pulled in after the serious stuff, though.
So, it's interesting. DARPA, I know, has been sort of tangential or adjacently looking at ad tech as a, as a defensive data set. But for the work that I was doing for JSOC, DARPA was not involved in that.
So when did you come back to them then? In what context?
I pitch ideas that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like an ongoing, like you have that door to go knock on as you're working on things that you think would be relevant, but you haven't necessarily gone in and run a project there since then.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't know that I've got the academic credentials to be on staff at DARPA.
I mean, I've heard listen to Annie Jacobson. They were fucking trying to telepathically talk with dolphins in 1991.
Yeah.
So like, I want to know, like you mentioned it, you're like, oh, they can work on stuff 20 years ahead. I've heard as much as 30 to 50.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder like what they got. And you said you were working on an LLM just being pulled in there the first time in 0506. It's like, how minute is like an open AI to what they have?
Yeah.
And therefore, can we even track what they have if they were using that in the real world right now? Would we even know about it?
So I think this is there's been a bit of inversion where the advances, like the moonshot advances that I think the moonshot advances are coming out of the commercial sector. I don't think they can keep pace.
You don't think DARPA can keep?
I think they're tracking but they're not inventing the internet.
They're not. What makes you so comfortable that they're not at the forefront of that? Because there are some weird ties between some of the founders of these companies, and I'm not even. By the way, that doesn't have to be negative.
Yep.
But like it doesn't look awesome.
So I think it's the pace of innovation, and DARPA is a government organization. The pace of innovation coming out of OpenAI or any of these other companies compared to their pace of innovation, particularly when we're talking about like things that I can implement today, that's a hard thing to scale as a competitor, as a government competitor. I think there should be a lot of cooperation between the R&D and the S&T branches of government, because by the time they develop their own version of OpenAI, like they'll be, version 10 be on GPT, 12 by the time we were able to catch up, or the government would be able to catch up. So I think there just needs to be this. There needs to be more openness to commercial innovation. Because it's the pace it's too fast.
Because also in like fairness to you, Mike, you're compartmentalized as well. It's not like when you're brought in there to DARPA, they take you to a big room and say, "Here's everything we're working.
Here's
on.
Our portfolio. Do you have anything on hypersonics?"
No, they say, "Here's a problem we have. We've brought you in to help solve this. This is the place you have access to. You don't have access to other shit. That doesn't involve you. Just focus on this thing." For all you know, you could be being used as a guinea pig to see if, like, all right, let's bring in some people from the private sector, see if they could even figure out what we have right here and see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hypothetically,
I suppose
it could be that, because I got to assume. And again, this might not be positive. There's a lot of ways this could be very negative, but I gotta assume the government is hand in hand on things like that, especially when you look at the power and some of the talent that they bring in to some of these places. Like the NSA hacking team's viewed as like the strongest hacking team in the world right there. So why wouldn't we have, or one of them, why wouldn't we have, guys who are like the strongest AI guys in the world? Or why wouldn't we have guys who are placed at the top of these companies that look like public figures? I'm not accusing people, but like as an example, what if like Sam Altman were like a guy working for NSA? It's possible.
His board is pretty extensive. You know,
a lot of that's what I'm saying. A lot of connections. It's
but and I think that it's a natural vertical for OpenAI to have threads into national security programs. It's been, like I said last time, if I had the language in 05, 06 to describe large language models instead of talking about solving the associative memory scaling problem, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Right.
And that wasn't that long ago. And all of the same things in 05, we're talking about looking at these large unstructured data sets and doing pattern analysis of what's in the text to do, predictive capability and everything that when you are using ChatGPT, all of the things that you are using that application for, we were looking at trying to build into the systems almost 20 years ago.
You were.
A lot of people were looking at this.
Wow.
Yep.
When you went in there in 05, 06 and they start presenting you the problem that they're looking for you to solve, and then also, I would imagine, presenting where it's relevant to you, various pieces of evidence or solutions that they've already come up with or ideas that they've mapped out that they think are possible. Did you ever have a moment where you were like, oh, fuck, we are entering a brave new world here?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when the conversation is about, all right, do we need to call the CEO of pick your Fortune 500 company? Does the White House need to broker that relationship or make that ask? It's like, okay, this got serious. But that was those types of projects are the incremental steps to moving the national security enterprise to thinking about data in ways in which you can ask it questions, tag, categorize data sets for your special purpose or whatever you're looking for. We probably needed to have those sort of incremental, I won't call it a failure, but we moved the ship in assigning a potential capability to deal or address a known threat in ways that probably hadn't done before.
Do you think that
there needed to be a leap, and I think it started where the data that we need and the data that we're looking at isn't necessarily something that we've generated. The government has generated. It's not a proprietary data set. It's external. That was the big leap with the commercial location data. It's like, so we're not generating this. This isn't some special access program. This is commercially available. So we need to be able to adjust our perceptions of value of data based upon, just because we didn't generate it, just because we didn't go out and collect it, doesn't mean it's not valuable.
I take it from my conversations on and off camera with you, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here. I take it that you're a guy who does value the Constitution and the rights within it.
100%.
Okay. Not that it's your fault you're running into these worlds, but you are constantly finding yourself in very weird, at best, gray areas of coming on, and you've said it yourself to your credit, coming onto the edge of things where it's like, okay, where does this become the slippery slope that you can't climb back up again?
Yep. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can collect against Americans, and even though nobody's getting hurt because nobody has anything to hide, doesn't mean you should be doing it. Doesn't mean the government should give itself that permission under the guise of the Patriot Act or counterterrorism.
So I take it you've had plenty of moments where you're like, where something comes across your desk in these various contexts, whether it be in 05 or 06 with DARPA, or, you know, in your years after uncovering the whole Syria operation, getting pulled into a bunch of stuff. I take it you've had some moments where you're like, fuck this. This is wrong.
Yeah. So this is the question. This is the issue of surveillance, right?
Yeah.
A surveillance state, where we accept these logical fallacies. More surveillance makes us safer. Okay, who's gonna argue that point? It's not necessarily true, because surveillance is a good tool for post event, apprehension, but it doesn't necessarily make us safer.
Yes.
And so, yeah, there have been instances in which I've been asked to do things, and my reaction is, what's the authority to do this? Just because we can, and you're asking me to do it. If there is an authority, you will do that type of work in a classified government building where you have an authority to go and do this.
Did you have some fights with people?
I didn't pick fights. I would just say I don't think I can help you. I don't think there's anything there.
Did you experience blowback, retribution, or consequences in any situation? Consequences of you losing access to projects you wanted to be involved on as a result of some of those conversations?
No, and I attribute that to the people that I was working with, who were as equally skilled and schooled and committed to the Fourth Amendment, the First Amendment, and following the law.
Right.
So, but again, when all of this started, there was a very limited number of people who were aware. So it was like, yeah, we have this tool, you want to have a look at it. But the more it got proliferated, it just sort of became a de facto, like, yeah, let's have a look and see what we can see about a U.S. person.
Right. U.S. person.
person.
So if we're talking about anything related to someone who is not from this country, especially when they're outside this country physically as well, in that case, there's no real question. They don't have any constitutional rights. So it's like, this is espionage. If we can do it, we do it.
100%.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah.
It gets weird with the American thing, because also, like, and this is where there have been so many oversteps by the intelligence agencies, and they should be crushed for it. But there are also some times where I'm like, I see how they got into that situation. They should not have done that. But like, when your job, for example, is to do like counterterrorism and protect, the homeland from something, and then someone on the homeland gets involved, it gets really weird. It's like, are you just going to give that to the FBI then to do it? And then does that violate constitutional rights if you found out that information through espionage? It gets very, very weird. There are other examples where it's like they clearly are violating constitutional, at every level of it. But there's some where I see how it gets to a point where the conundrum comes up. And it's not necessarily the worst intentions. It's just, you get cynical when you see stuff like the Patriot Act, and things that are sold to the American people with nice and fancy names that in reality are just signing away all their rights.
Who's going to vote against the U.S. Patriot Act?
Yeah, like, Save the Puppies Act.
Really? Yeah. Who's against saving puppies? And this is, so something that sounds good or seems reasonable at the time. Again, how long have we been debating the Patriot Act? And just what we talked about it a minute ago. We have senators who are the biggest cheerleaders for the Patriot Act until that light is shined on them, and now they have the benefit of hauling the fucking FBI director into a hearing to question him on it. can you do that? Can you hold the FBI accountable? Even if they've, swept up your data, they're not looking at it, you have nothing to worry about. What's your right of challenge? How do you challenge the FBI on violating?
Right.
Even, hey, there's been no harm, and that slips into the normalization of deviance, where, hey, there's been no harm, so there shall be no harm until there's harm.
Right.
And now, everybody has the right to, leave their past behind and reinvent. And I get all of that. But if there is a portrait of you as somebody who was a dissenter or an opponent of a potentially hostile regime, and your intent is, well, I'll just ride this one out, but they want to target their political opponents. They can roll back that tape, and I think that's where we don't focus on this normalization of deviance, where just because we haven't had that massive, people haven't been rounded up and thrown in prison because they voted for one party or the other. Just because we haven't had that, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but what's a similar metaphor or a similar analogy to, we're not going to hire you because we've done a deep dive on your patterns of life. That's where I look at all of this surveillance stuff that I've built and sold, and it's in the proper use case, I'm all for it. But when it's the shortcut to coercion, persuasion, influence by a commercial entity or the government, I'm 100% opposed to any system that allows that. And, there's this, the Consumer Finance Protection Board is under the Biden administration. They came up, or they are implementing a rule, the 1033 rule.
Okay.
1033 obligates every financial institution. You know how if you have your bank account and you want to integrate like QuickBooks or some other third party, you can make that happen, right? They want to, this rule would require all financial institutions to make all of that data available to any authorized entity through a standard API, application program interface. Yeah. So where we have a system now where you've got typical traditional banks and emerging fintech or other service providers, and there's a little bit of friction in that space to protect your privacy and your data, this rule seeks to make all of that far, far easier. And this is how the surveillance state emerges, because something that's promised as convenience, open banking, the counterfactual to open banking is, it's open banking.
Open banking?
It's a global movement to make, it's almost like if you want to port your phone number from one carrier to the next.
Yeah.
This Rule 1033 is meant to make that far easier for the consumer to bolt on additional services or move from one account to the next. And it's a standard government enforced API that opens the door to don't surveillance because it's easier
and it's convenient.
It's convenient.
Yes,
citizens don't. We don't. Did you know that you needed an open API for global banking? Have you been feeling that pain? Because the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau is on the case.
Yes.
And so, I talk about this, like surveillance just doesn't pop up one day. It's iterative. It's
Yes.
slow. It capitalizes on all of these systems are integrated. There are no fire breaks between your bank and potentially Google. Amazon is a big proponent of this Rule 1033.
But I'll bet they are.
The Retail Federation, the National Association of Convenience Stores are backing this rule. What's the intent there? And it won't be long before an open API makes it very easy for the Patriot Act to say, there's an open API. It's easy. We're just going to tap into that. Surveillance just doesn't pop up one day. It's slow, iterative, and sort of built into these obscure administrative rules that people aren't tracking. And the good news, though, is that the Trump administration has has asked court to terminate it.
That's good.
Yep. Somebody's paying attention.
Because that's another problem where you see there are also legal loopholes that the government will go around to avoid having to put things through Congress or to, in some ways, I don't even know how this is possible, but you get really smart lawyers on it, you figure it out, like to usurp the process of having to create laws. I mean, there's famous ones that were in the Patriot Act era related to it, not the Patriot Act itself, where, Dick Cheney and Dick Armitage and all these people were coming up with these ways to have to surveil United States citizens and get these waivers, like from the AG. And there's a famous story. John Ashcroft, I believe, was the attorney general at the time. Maybe this is like 03-ish, something like that. Fucking guy had, maybe it was his pancreas exploded.
They
or
had to
something.
go get him to sign the waiver in the hospital.
So they go to the hospital. He's like comatose. Dick Cheney's there. A couple lawyers are there. And they go to get the guy to sign the waiver.
I think it was for enhanced interrogation.
Something, I don't remember what it was, but something to basically have to go around Congress. And it was a continuation for something illegal that they were allowing to happen. And ironically, so I guess a broken clock's right twice a day, but the hero was Jim Comey. Jim Comey came in and stopped it from happening. I guess, in that situation, he was righteous and correct. But,
I don't know what happened to him.
It's, I don't know about him either. But it's interesting, like, that's how it went down. But it's scary that people, even if it's people you elect, which, Dick Cheney was elected. He was on the ticket at least. They can just be like, I know the legislative branch is for creating laws, but we're going to do that today.
The War Powers Act.
Yes.
Yeah. You're talking about the administrative state, right? Yes. Where you've got, they're not cabinet level aid like the EPA or the CFPB that I just talked about, where they have the authority to issue rules that their subject entities have to follow. There's no vote. There's no legislative process. They might have, kind of a review process, but they can implement rules that are not that aren't laws, but you can't not follow the rules. And I think that and that's when Trump was canceling a bunch of these rules, I think that was sort of attacking this administrative state that just can rule with impunity and fiat, and they don't have there's no accountability, there's no pushback. And I think this is one of those types of rules where it sounds good. It speaks to, consumer rights and all these things. But when you peel it back and look at what's it going to be like in 10 years, if there is an API is what, this creates too much ability for bad actors, for the government to access, the ledger of human behavior, your financial data. So surveillance just doesn't happen it chips away and seeds itself into the society. So your original question, a lot of what I exposed was absolutely for righteousness, but it quickly can become sort of a go-to, quick, easy. Sure. Let's just have a look. We're not going to do anything with it, but we can.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And I think the way our senators reacted to their, to the very systems that they have supported and funded is very telling.
For sure. Yeah, and it's what you're pointing to is the worst example ever of hypocrisy when, you're in an elite position, you're trying to feed the plebs something that just take your medicine.
Yeah.
And then you tell
what do you have to hide?
Yeah, then
okay,
they're
Lindsay,
told to take it too.
What do you have? Why are you so acutely incensed? Lindsay?
I mean, is it even hidden at this point? Everyone knows.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's been so many whistleblowers on that. It's like no pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah, he was not in my Grindr data set. that I'm willing to discuss.
I forgot to ask you if you checked the RNC for that, because apparently there's a real hotspot when the RNC happens for Grindr data.
Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me. See, so I think this is the kind of thing that normal people, when they hear surveillance, they need to be educated. They need to know what that means. I think, privacy goes beyond just trying to defeat annoying ads. Even if you're not necessarily trying to hide anything or keep secrets, your privacy is like foundational.
Yeah.
Privacy enables you to think freely, and from a geopolitical perspective, influencing is all about data, and without privacy, it's very easy for adversaries to start doing, a cohort analysis. Yeah. We're going to target this group. We've seen it. This is how it happens. It's what I would do.
Did you come across programs or have access to information at any point during any of your work over the years that discussed the ability to use technology to spy on people? And specifically what I mean, of course, you came across technology where people are spying, but like, for example,
activate your camera.
Yeah. This camera right now on my laptop that's looking at us right now with the production screen, but there is an open camera right there. And even my phone that's on airplane mode. Is there someone on the other end that at any given moment can be looking at me right now?
No, they would have to, if they're doing that, you have bigger problems than the fact that they've activated your cameras.
What do you mean by that?
If they have activated your cameras and attacked your devices, then you're already in the crosshairs.
But for the average person, they're not necessarily doing that, but they have the power to.
Yeah, the capability is there. And it's not necessarily a government, limited to a government who can tap into an IP camera or any of your peripherals.
Meaning the private corporations can do it anything.
Yeah, I have not come across a situation in which a decision was taken to activate one's camera without you knowing, because they don't need to do that.
Yeah.
You have Alexa in your house. Amazon owns that. I don't need your permission to tap into everything that's going on.
I don't have an Alexa, but yeah.
Or any of these other, smart devices. And that's...
Yeah, I love that I say that as like a, look at me, but then I own like fucking 40 of these other things.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, like 99.9% of everybody that works in government is trying to do the right thing.
99.9?
Yeah, I mean, I'm most.
Maybe it's 96.
Yeah. But I think that it's far easier for a commercial enterprise to offer you something that promises convenience, that is a welcomed, invited, you pay for it surveillance apparatus.
Now let's paint an example of that. This is an Apple product, right? So if Apple, because they have the power to, and I hit agree on a bunch of shit that I didn't read. If they were recording us right now, no, we're just talking on a podcast, but they decide, we're going to use AI to change what they're saying.
Do you have Siri activated on this?
I don't have Siri on that.
So it'd be interesting, and we can do this if you want to look at your logs to see when that laptop woke up and started firing off data, diagnostic information to Apple, which you've agreed to as part of your upgrade terms of service, and what is the data that it is examining for diagnostic use purposes, and what other data is contained in that flow of information, identifiable data about device ownership. You've named the device, the meta fields that would enable them to determine or append an identity to that device, even though they probably have it already because you.
Yeah.
But take an app that is going to do the same thing, where your device is going to wake up at the middle of the night and start exfilling data under the guise of performance diagnostics, all this stuff. Even if you have your phone in airplane mode, it is still sensing. And then once you go back online, those files will be sent.
Even on airplane. Wow.
Yep.
So let me continue that example to build this out one more layer where it gets weird. Apple, therefore, let's say the data's firing and they're collecting.
Yep.
And so they get, let's say instead of having to change AI, let's say you and I both talked right now and we said some really horrible stuff for some reason. Not what we're talking about right now, but just use your imagination. We say something horrible.
Like if we're Republican bros and talking.
I don't know, but you insert whatever.
Have you heard about that?
No.
Yeah, they were some kids, the Republican.
Wait, I did hear about
some
this.
Republican.
Yes. Who was doing that? Who were they doing that to again? They sent where did I just read this the other day? Who did they send that shit to? It
was like a group text.
Yes, it was a mass blast or something.
Yeah, and
saying a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
That felt like an op, but whatever.
Yeah.
So
they needed to distract people from the Attorney General in Virginia.
Right.
The candidate for Attorney General in Virginia.
Right. So something like that happens. They were saying all this racist stuff and things like that. So if you and I were doing that right now, we're like, oh, well, we can't ever release that. But then, they captured this at Apple. Now, they don't do anything with it.
Yep.
They have it back there, but they capture it just because they can. However, later on...
You've backed up chats to iCloud?
No, not even that, but let's play with that in a minute. Later on, someone comes in here that I'm unaware of. Maybe let's use an example, like an author or something like that, who, unbeknownst to me, is some sort of wanted person from another country or something like that. CIA or NSA gets a hold of that and they realize, oh shit, they went into this guy Julian Dorey's studio and they know I have an Apple device. And now for national security purposes, they may hack Apple for counterterrorism to try to get in there. And now they have you and me saying all this shit as well.
In that case, they would subpoena Apple for all of your they would just issue a subpoena.
Even the intelligence agencies?
Well, if it's happening here, it would be FBI. The intelligence community should not be.
But it's a foreign person in here. That's what I'm saying. That's why I use that example. If it's an American, that's a different story. But a foreign person that they've tracked to America out from outside the border, that's that gray area where it becomes their jurisdiction.
And if it's the agency that's tracking that person and he's their guy or somebody that they're interested in, that's where they have to, and he's interfacing with all these Americans. This is where they need to immediately bring in FBI. and not try to run this.
But
domestically.
hypothetically, they might not do that. And hypothetically, they could go get access to that data
Sure.
because hypothetically, that is recording us.
Yeah.
It's not reassuring.
Well,
Because you're making the assumption, and there's nothing wrong with this, you're playing with the example as you should, but you're operating under the assumption that everyone is doing shit by the book and not doing things for what they believe are the right intentions, but breaking the laws in the process. Or exposing the gray area to try to match what they're doing, even if it's not perfect.
They're going to be to maintain that firewall between the Bureau and something happening in the States. That's pretty high level.
Mm. Now, what were you going to say? What was the other example you were giving about the chats or whatever a minute ago? Where I took it in the other direction. But you were like, and then they get access to your Apple chats or something?
Yeah. I mean, if you're backing everything up to iCloud,
yeah,
and that's retained, they issue a warrant for iCloud and whatever is there, your calendar, chats, anything that's backed up to iCloud, your pictures, photos, that would be stipulated in the warrant. And Apple would review it. They get a lot of them every day. Google gets a lot of those every day. And if it's correct and their legal team, yep, this is a proper warrant, they comply.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine get an email recently, not about him, but related to discovery for some random person who had emailed him once. And Google went to him and said, "Hey,
your
doesn't
name
doesn't involve you at all, but just letting you know,
that you were
that
named.
you were on the discovery because you're one of like 1 million people this person emailed. So when we pull that email, we're giving it to FBI, but it has nothing to do with you, and there's no action for you to take, and you're not going to hear from FBI." But I was like, that's kind of a spooky email to get, like fuck.
Yeah, do you get a criminal defense lawyer when you get that kind of email?
Yeah, that's what he was saying. And then he talked to someone and they're like, "No, you're fine."
Yeah.
But that's an example of like the thing they get every day where some of them they're like, "Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We can hand that over."
Yeah.
So the other one we haven't really talked about, we didn't get into it last time, made a couple jokes about it, was Palantir.
Mm-hmm.
They're obviously quite in the crosshairs of a lot of things. You got one co-founder giving speeches on the Antichrist to people.
Yeah.
And then you got another co-founder who has so much tism mixed with, I don't know, sociopathy that it scares the shit out of me when he talks, the carp guy. And you have a company that essentially was invested in by COINTELPRO or?
Incutel.
Incutel, sorry, yeah. Incutel, which is like the CIA's VC branch. And they utilize drones and surveillance and AI on top of those things to, assist in war zones. And it seems to be dragging even beyond that at this point, to the point that we are now certainly questioning some of the constitutionality of the tactics that they use. So first question, have you had any overlap in anything you've done where Palantir's involved?
Sure. So I think, there's collection where you're collecting data, whether it's, through drones or intercepts. And that data goes into a government server, and Palantir basically sits on top of that and is the dashboard, the front end to that data. I am not aware of Palantir doing collection. But they are, their AI product is, a product that requires training, and that gets into the question of, human in the loop and what is it deciding to do, and is the AI launching drone strikes, and I don't know of any situation in which AI went haywire and launched a strike without a human pushing the button. It may do optimal target selection. Or
optimal target selection, meaning like here's 5 different options. This is the best one based on the data.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. This is, and when I say optimal target selection, it's not, let's pick the guy we want to engage. It's, this is the optimal conditions by which we can engage because it's open area. We have access. It's optimized for maximum effects.
Do you worry about the reach that they have?
So I think we talked about this last time. And I know a lot of people shit on them. And I've never worked for them, and I don't own stock. But they arrived and became a force because they didn't come up with fancy sales presentations. They solved the commander's problem like in a day or two. The commander's problem was, I have all of this data that we're collecting, ISR data, cell phone data. I have all this data, but I have to go to 10 different systems in order to see what is happening in my theater of operations.
Right.
Palantir solved that by integrating all of those various data sets into a language that could then be rendered in this common operating picture, this dashboard visualization of all of the data that a commander could look and see. I've got this going on. I've got that going on. I have this common place to understand all of these data sets, and it's a data fusion capability. And they solved that. They solved that where, nobody else was solving that. And they solved it very elegantly with engineers interfacing with the customer first, as opposed to, a salesperson giving a fancy presentation promising that we could do all this. And they were like, yeah, we can do this.
That part doesn't surprise me because it's birthed by people who came from the venture capital and tech world in Silicon
They
Valley.
totally disrupted, and that's why one day there wasn't Palantir.
Yes.
And the next day it's like program of record, program of record, program of record.
But when you have a company that is effectively, literally financially tied to the government, one of the people running it is a dude who funds a lot of campaigns and is highly politically active, in Peter Thiel. And they have the power that they do, and then even start openly discussing it in relation to like flying it over protests and inside the United States to collect data.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not even defending people that go to those types of things, but they are, the ones that are not violent, are practicing their First Amendment rights. Like, it gets really weird when a tool like that that's supposed to be used to solve commanders' issues on the battlefield around the world, which would make sense, is now being used
a
here.
node for ISR. And
yes.
Yeah. I wonder about that if that's because they're not newly publicly traded, but whether that's part of their, they're a publicly traded company. So, they need to move that needle every day. But if law enforcement makes the decision that we're going to fly drones over a protest, and the way in which we're viewing that data is through Palantir, Palantir isn't the privacy issue or the violation of your rights. It's the decision to surveil this protest.
Yes.
That's
I see what you're saying.
and everything, around surveillance. Like, there are the tools to do it, and there will be vendors who will enable that. It's the decision to implement these solutions, these technologies. And I'm sure when you have a protest and there are going to be 50,000 people, you're going to want to have some overwatch. You're going to want to have some airborne ISR keeping an eye on things, because you don't have enough cops to put out there.
But what's the line on what it keeps access on?
But if by virtue, if you are guilty by being at that protest, and let's say, for example, you decide to attend a protest that might involve trying to stop the steal of an election, and You didn't violate any laws, but you were on the grounds of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Law enforcement has been very aggressive in identifying everybody who most were peaceful. We had a handful of knuckleheads who, sort of trespassed.
Yes.
If you I don't even know if those charges stuck because the Capitol.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But
you're talking about everyone else, especially
everybody else.
Yeah.
The family that was visiting Washington that happened to be in proximity to the Capitol during that event, who didn't go to the event, but their bank, their credit card purchases were examined to determine whether there's proof of presence that they were there, and do we need to investigate? That, I think, you start getting into that gray area of just because you were at a protest, and you should have the right to protest, but the minute you start burning shit and destroying property, then you've crossed a line.
Sure.
But by virtue of being at that protest should not be used against you in the future, or you should not be concerned that the government is using invoking your constitutional right, that they're going to use it against you because they can.
But I think people have now seen the precedents where on certain scales they do. So when they hear about an even more powerful outfit like Palantir, they righteously go, this is what maybe 1984 looks like. You can see where people are getting that from, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What was that Tom Cruise movie, Minority Report?
Yes.
Where, people are getting hauled away because of what they are likely to do based upon the predictive algorithm that says, well, you've invoked these behaviors, you're of this certain character, so we're just going to take you off the street before you even do it. Predictive policing has been, a term that's been around for years, and that's designed to, place officers in high crime areas. But I don't think we should we shouldn't take any of this surveillance for granted, that somebody isn't going to look at this and say, well, I could use it for this because it's in the public interest. I'm preventing crime.
Right.
I think that's where privacy is beyond, a terms of service guarantee.
Yes.
We have privacy for a reason. Founders didn't describe it as privacy, but there was a reason why they wrote the Fourth Amendment into the Constitution.
That's right.
Where does that line stop? And the more our systems are all integrated for frictionless commerce, that becomes a gray area for authorities, because it's like, I can access this. It's open. It's an open banking portal. We don't have those friction points to make it harder for us to be secure in our papers. But good luck trying to put that back in the bottle.
That's the thing. And that's where, I'm an optimist.
Yep.
There's certain things I'm cynical on because it's like, but when I look at the long term, I look at the data, ironically, and I'm like, we are living in the best time in human history. There's some things that got to change. There's some poor trends we have right now. But I think when you look at all the times when things are going really shit wrong from a geopolitical, economic, sociological, and cultural standpoint, especially in the history, our short history of our country in America, like, we've always found a way. And
Yep.
and I think we can find a way. But when I see people concerned, and I see people concerned about this all the time, about some life imitating art aspects of society that look a little, say, 1984-ish and Brave New World-ish, it's impossible for me to shut it down and completely and say, no, like, there's none of that. There are some things that point towards that. What I would like to believe is that there are enough great benevolent people who are maybe of a more elite status, more power and more wealth,
Who will say no?
who will say no.
Yeah.
In addition to the people who aren't so good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the people who are good can kind of cancel that out.
Right.
You know? And so who knows? Maybe the guys that run Palantir will all turn out to be wrong about them, and they'll actually have the right intentions. I'm rooting for that outcome. It just doesn't, when you listen to them talk, I mean, as much as Teal scares me with some things, that Karp guy scares the shit out of me. I mean, he is a strange bird, really strange bird. It's like, I hope it's just that he's strange. And, you know, there's a governor on these mechanisms. But there's no doubt that the mechanisms that they're starting to form and come up with have immense power now and can grow into exponential forms of power beyond that.
Yeah. And they may have the capability, you know, Foundry is their AI engine. And maybe they have the ability to do predictive things that are a violation of a constitutional right. Somebody in government needs to say, I'm not buying that. You know, I'm not going to fund that.
Yes.
But, you know, predictive, you know, in an overseas capacity, okay. And then you see how it sort of it blends into a monolithic government capability.
Yeah.
You know, and keep in mind, you know, like I was saying before, surveillance sort of chips away. It doesn't just show up.
Yes.
And so surveillance, it's almost like nefarious. It's almost like, you know, evil. It speaks to you in ways that are seductive and doesn't feel like it's wrong or it feels good. It feels, you know, open-minded and progressive and all these things. But the third order of effects, when things are frictionless, that's when the Orwellian state of society becomes like, no, it's just the way it is. I don't have to pay for my train ticket because the transit authority recognized my face and knows that I have a certain amount of money on my account.
Convenience.
Convenience. Isn't this cool? Aren't we a progressive, advanced society? Okay, so your proof of presence, every time you have to use an app to buy a $2 cup of coffee, well, that's proof of presence that your credit card company now knows that you were at this coffee shop or this restaurant to buy a $2 cup of coffee. Your proof of presence is now irrefutable.
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be, we're supposed to embrace that as luxury? I don't know. I think a little bit of friction in the system is what keeps us autonomous from the big state. But privacy is, I don't view it being coming from where I've come from and seen. You know, privacy to me is like, okay, this isn't just a consumer feature that I'm going to depend on Google or Apple to provide for me.
Right.
It's like Americans need to value their privacy, because privacy is a more dignified way to live.
Yes.
So I don't think that there's anybody in government gangster enough to like push the button to make the dystopian state activated tomorrow. But the technologies are there.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's a one person kind of deal. I think it's a road to hell of groupthink and conformity.
It's like we talk about the deep state. So these things metastasize throughout government, not because there's some committee that makes that decision. It's like it starts here, kind of moves over here, gets wind over here. Next thing you know, you've got a cabal, a cartel.
Yep.
And nobody knows quite what the central authority. There is no centralization. It just
right.
It's like cancer, and it spreads, and that is a function of all of these consumer capabilities that make life easier. We haven't even talk about sort of adversarial machine learning and training data as a way of influencing a society where it's not, you're not hacking ChatGPT, you are creating data that ChatGPT trains off of that fulfills a narrative that you seek.
Seen that already.
China's answer to ChatGPT has been trained to give glowing feedback on China. China is exporting that technology no differently than they try to export Huawei. They seed it into emerging, developing economies.
Yep.
And next thing you know, they have created a society that is all in on the China narrative because that's how they've engaged with technology.
You hack the library, you control the readers.
So when the large language model is dirty, it doesn't, the AI is a rule engine. It's just responding. But if it's been schooled and learned, we talk about, my learning is, I come from a perspective. Its perspective is that large language model. That is one of those easy buttons for influence. I'm going to, we're going to do this Belt and Road deal, and I'm going to throw in DeepSeek.
Yep.
And all of that data, all of the, the prompts, and this is the other thing that, people are concerned that their privacy is being violated because of the engagement. It's the prompts. Like you will in ChatGPT, your privacy in terms of what you're chatting about is locked down, but the questions you ask and the interactions, that is proprietary.
Yep.
And that's the metadata that, this is what you were asking about. So that almost provides this meta layer of, you think Google knows what you're interested in.
It's no different than Google, and what they did with their model.
Even more.
Of course.
Because now, they saw that you're interested in purchasing a car.
Yep.
They can see that transaction through. It's almost like you go to a car dealer and, the car salesman wants to be your friend and is trying to cozy up to you.
Yeah.
And you don't want it. You're just like, no, you don't care about my family. Let's just put it on the table. But you've been having this interaction with an LLM or a GPT in which it knows you're looking for a car. It knows whether you liked the car because now you're chatting with it about, how do I get out of this lease, or how do I unwind this, or what are the aftermarket, what's the aftermarket for this? So now it knows how you feel about the car, but it's like your friend. So you're revealing things that you wouldn't talk to the salesman about why you want to buy this car, but the GPT knows.
Gets weird.
It gets weird.
What drives you to do what you do?
So this thing that everybody is very interested in is kind of it's like a lagging indicator. I did that. What's next? Or am I a one trick pony? So
do you love what you do?
I think that I have crafted what I do in a way that allows me to pick and choose what I want to do. I don't walk into an office and what's on the queue for today. I get to say no to what I want to say no to. And I think that's sort of the career of the future, because AI is going to automate a lot of these white collar jobs. So until you can find a lane in which there is a very special skill set in which you are uniquely qualified to fulfill, and figuring what that is out early, I think that's what people need to think about in terms of what do I do? What am I going to do with myself? Where do I find meaning? You're not going to find meaning in a job. Pays the bills. It's a paycheck. Leave it at that. But this was an evolution. Like I took a lot of shit too.
Yeah. Where can your skills make a difference?
Yeah. And where is this going to take me in a direction where I'm just going to get frustrated? So I think that tech is interesting. But I think we need to look at it from we need to be able to question what is its value, and be able to have those conversations without having to apologize for it.
I like that.
You know, we're entitled to privacy. We need to get serious about it.
Well, I think you explaining how it works a little better certainly helps people. So I'm glad we could do this again and fill in on some of the things we didn't get to last time in episode 243. But thanks for coming back so soon, Mike.
My pleasure. I hope the 1033 discussion didn't. I'm like, wow, people, that's good. That's a real show sticker right there.
The 1033
talking about a CFBP rule. Like, okay. I'm going to listen to something else.
No, I think that I wasn't aware of that.
But that's one of those, like, nobody knows about it.
Yeah,
and it's
but that's
boring
what
as
people
shit.
want to know.
But that's how
boring.
it starts.
I don't think it's boring. I think people are like, what is that?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing stuff like that. We'll do it again sometime, all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace.
Thank you guys for watching the episode. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. They're both a huge, huge help. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below.